After a roller coaster 3 days here at Castor, just what have we learned? Ben, how do you think the Praetorium theory is holding up now?
Pretty well. It's not a villa. Villas are surrounded by farming estates. They've got ancillary buildings, they've got farm buildings, barns, workers' housing. There's nothing like that here. What else is it? It's a grand, grand building.
What do we think this building was for?
Well, again, let's just return to Edmund Artis. He first termed it a Praetorium, which would mean to him an official residence, perhaps of an official link with the state, and that's exactly what it is.
How do you feel about Artis now?
Well, Artis and his plans still live. Yeah, that's...
Absolutely. Where we have tested his plans, we found them to be right. And the other wonderful thing is, of course, they're very, very beautiful. Yeah. His impressions, his general views are gorgeous. They're pretty as well as being informative. Everybody likes something to be pretty as well as functional. Like my hat.
So Castor has 2 clear Roman phases, which means the baths at the south end of the site were almost certainly built at an earlier date than the big building up on the hill, where Phil's now finished in the graveyard. You've got to be pleased with that mosaic.
Yeah, I reckon I am, Tony, but I think I'm probably more pleased about the probable wall.
What wall? We haven't got a wall.
I know you can't actually see the wall, but you see those disarticulated pieces of bone down there? Well, when I actually got down to the edge here, I thought to myself, I wonder if it could be a robbed wall. So I thought to myself, I'll get Henry to plot out the position that Artis is building on the ground from the mapping. So that's what he's done. One corner of the building, probable building, is over there. See that red pegs over there?
Here?
Yeah. That's one corner there.
Yeah.
And then you see those red pegs there between the 2 gravestones over there?
It's truth, all the way over here.
Have them run, yeah. Go
and
on.
all this is one building.
Now then, when you line up over there, give or take a metre, allowing for the scale, it puts the wall line straight through here. Not only that, the alignment of the tesserae is just slightly skewed round to the alignment of the church. And that's exactly what the tesserae and the plan do, exactly the same.
Yeah. So, regardless of what might be elsewhere, we know that there was a massive construction here. So it looks as though Artis was right after all.
Well, it looks like it, doesn't it, from what we can see, yeah.
The massive Roman wall that Rackshar found at the western end of the graveyard, nearly 2 metres wide, was built to support a building possibly 3 stories high. And at an extraordinary 110 metres in length, this is the largest Roman building Time Team has ever excavated. It would have had a vast red-tiled roof and bright whitewashed walls. A truly astonishing structure. Mick, I can't remember another dig quite like this one.
It's been fantastic to be able to dig in the churchyard, hasn't it? Absolutely fantastic.
3 days ago, I don't think any of us could have dreamt of what we got.
Absolutely not. And this is so exciting to find this mosaic here underneath these bodies. We've got artists telling the truth. It's a real thing. The Praetorium exists, in my view. I'm quite happy
Wonderful.
with it. Wonderful.
My favourite trench on the whole site has got to be this one, with the little house nestling in the lee of the big mound that went round the castle, and then this thick midden material on top of it, and another house on top of that. But it's not just me who's been so excited about this trench. All day, local people have been turning up to have a look at Phil's work. Except, Phil, you've now turned your attention to this end of the trench.
Look what we've got down there.
Oh, yeah, this black stuff here, yeah.
Absolutely, that is intense burning, and that burning is underneath the bank. Perhaps that burning is an event in history, an attack on the castle, and as a result of that, they actually strengthened, or actually built for the first time, this massive bank.
Well, we can't prove that, but it is a nice story, isn't it? So although Kenfig never dared to expand far beyond the castle's defensive palisade, its people were a resilient bunch. Each time their town was destroyed, they simply rebuilt it. They didn't just survive. Judging by what we found, they prospered. What started as a frontier outpost became as well maintained as the towns we know today. But it's this path in front of it. I can't remember a time team where we've had such an opportunity to see a really well-preserved medieval road.
I know. It's astonishing, Tony. I mean, this is beautifully laid out.
That's not just because we've cleaned it well archaeologically.
No,
You think it was like that?
No, if there were deep holes and potholes and that sort of thing, we'd have revealed them archaeologically.
The road, like the town itself, is a unique time capsule. The sand ultimately forced Kenfig's inhabitants to abandon their homes, but it's allowed us to retell the town's history. Right, I think we're done, Francis. Tell them the story.
Right, OK, folks. Now, this is a high-precision model. That's the castle,
This one here.
which is over there.
Yep.
And there are two sizes of yoghurt pots representing houses.
Those and
Yep.
those.
The big ones are the sort of high-status ones. That's where Cassie and Tracy were digging.
Yeah.
And then there's a main east-west road.
Down there.
Yeah. And to the left there, just behind the ramparts, is the rough end of town. And that's where Phil was all 3 days.
No shame in that, no shame in that. Better quality pubs, though.
Then we got another road heading out.
This way.
That's
Yep.
it. Through the ramparts. And then open fields and farms. And then for about 200 years, 300 years, that was the town of Kenfig. And then the winds got up and the sands gathered. And slowly the whole thing was buried.
Very good, Francis. Phil, I said we'd probably end up this dig playing sandcastles. Pretty impressive bits of masonry.
They're fantastic, aren't they? This is all part of really good quality window tracery, glazed window. And on this one, you can even see where the masons set out his marks.
I love this V bit on Mick's one.
Well, he's got the top of a mullion in between two window openings.
So like that it would
Yeah,
be, so it is.
yeah. Got a little arch either side of a central upright.
What kind of date do you think these are?
I think these are probably early 14th century.
So how does that tie in with this trench?
That shows us, along with these massive walls, that there's a really big building phase of early 1300s around this rectangular courtyard here.
Yeah.
Is this one of the legendary buttresses?
Yes. And you can see the mason's marks on it as well on the side.
Great, isn't it, that we've got the autograph of one particular worker who was working on this fantastic site.
This is clearly a huge building campaign that produces, from what you're showing us, some sort of really posh, aristocratic manor house, not necessarily fully fortified, but like a palace almost.
The Greys are doing really well.
They are,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But after that, it's demolished, and they start to build, presumably, that big house over there. And we're just getting glimpses in each of the trenches of what went on before this lot was put up.
So this is the bailey of the Motte and Bailey Castle?
Yeah, where we've got timber slots and bits of pots and odd little trenches. And we're never going to get a complete plan out of it, but at least we can see a much less regular layout of the buildings in this bailey before they come in. And, I mean, this is a mega project.
When the Greys were at the apex of their power. Great result. We now not only know what Groby's buildings looked like, but we can actually chart their history right back to the Norman period. After 1066, Hugh Gromany was given the land and built himself a really substantial Motte and Bailey castle with a stone keep and living quarters in the enclosure surrounding it. And this was the Greys' home until the 14th century, when they decided to upgrade. Most of the buildings that we've excavated seem to have come into use round about the early 1300s. How is that reflected in the history?
Well, we don't have anyone that we can definitely identify as the builder, but we've got here a William Ferrers, who summoned Parliament as Baron of Groby, and he dies in 1325. So this is about the sort of time that you can imagine them going, we've got the name, we've got the position, we're rising in society. What we want is a really nice, big, medieval, you know, style house to kind of back that up, really.
What about when our houses were demolished in the late 1400s, early 1500s? What was going on then?
Well, this comes into the people that I'm really interested in, because Elizabeth Woodville has two boys by John Grey, and one of them is Thomas Grey, and as part of her rise in the royal family, he becomes a marquis. He's given a marquis and he marries an heiress with the title. Maybe he goes, well, I'll start building here again and make this the show house that I want it to be if I'm going to be now a great Tudor magnate, having been a great Plantagenet magnate. So he builds the great brick tower and I think starts work on here.
So he might have demolished all the stuff that we've been excavating then, and that's where we get our brick tower. So perhaps when the Greys' fortunes rose with William Ferrers in the 14th century, they began to build their stunning medieval home with two-storey accommodation, a magnificent great hall and buttressed ranges forming a quadrangle. A property fit for the remarkable Elizabeth Woodville, Queen of England. And later her son, the Marquis Thomas Grey, went one better, demolishing this stone palace and building an even more fashionable brick residence, our 15th century tower.
Hello, my name's John Gator. Time Team is fan-funded by Patreon. This vital support helps us to make new episodes. Joining Patreon gives you access to exclusive interviews, 3D models and masterclasses, plus lots more.